The night was silent in the old scrapyard on the edge of the city. Broken machines, metal junk, and rusted ships lay scattered under the pale moonlight. Ethan Cole worked alone, his hands covered in oil, his clothes old and dusty. He was only 27, but life had already made him older inside. He fixed things that others had thrown away, old robots, ship engines, and tools no one cared about anymore. Sometimes, he looked at the stars and wondered if anyone else was out there watching him back. But on this night, the stars had an answer. A loud boom shook the ground. Ethan looked up, his eyes wide. A bright blue light was falling from the sky like a comet. It cut through the clouds and crashed into the forest just beyond the scrapyard. The earth trembled, birds flew in panic, and smoke rose from the trees. For a long second, Ethan just stood there, frozen. Then curiosity pushed fear away. He grabbed his flashlight and an old rifle and ran toward the crash site. His heart pounded fast, each step echoing in the quiet night. When he reached the crater, he saw something glowing, a small metallic pod, half buried in the dirt, hissing with steam. Ethan slowly walked closer, his boots crunching the ground. The pod's surface was covered with strange symbols, glowing faintly blue. He had never seen anything like it before, not even in the military tech archives he once repaired. Suddenly, the pod made a clicking sound. The top opened slightly with a soft hiss. Ethan stepped back, aiming the rifle, but what came out wasn't a weapon. It was a small hand, trembling, weak, and pale blue. A child crawled out, maybe 10 years old, thin, with glowing silver eyes and small pointed ears. He looked scared, lost, and hurt. Ethan lowered his gun slowly. The boy tried to speak, but his voice cracked. "Please, help, my mom. She's been taken," he whispered. Ethan blinked. Getting he was imagining it, but the boy continued, his eyes filled with tears. "They took her away. She's a slave now. Please, help me." Ethan felt his chest tighten. The boy's voice sounded so desperate, so real. He knelt down and looked closely. Around the boy's neck was a strange metal collar with blinking red lights. It looked like a control device, alien technology. Ethan had seen many things, but never something like that. He touched the collar gently, and the boy flinched in pain. Hey, it's okay," Ethan said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The boy looked at him with trust and fear mixed together. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. "Tyrion," the boy replied weakly. "From planet Vera." Ethan's mind spun. An alien child from another world crashed on Earth asking for help. If this was real, then Earth was no longer alone in the universe. But before he could think further, his scanner beeped. Multiple signals, fast-moving, heading toward them. He looked at the boy. "Someone's coming," he said quickly. "We have to go." Tyrion nodded, too weak to walk. Ethan lifted him up and ran back toward the scrapyard. Behind them, drones zipped through the trees, red lights scanning the crash site. By the time they reached Ethan's workshop, the sky was alive with distant search beams. Ethan shut the doors and placed the boy on a table. Tyrion's breathing was shallow, the collar flashing faster. Ethan grabbed his tools. "Don't move, kid. I'll try to take this thing off." When he connected a small energy wire to the collar, it reacted instantly. A hologram burst out. An image of a woman appeared above the boy. She looked like him, older, with kind eyes filled with pain. Her voice was broken, but clear. "If anyone finds this, please protect my son. They took me to the Zorith mines. Don't let them use him." Then the hologram flickered and vanished. Ethan stared at the space where she had been. Zorith mines? Use him? What did that mean? Before he could ask the boy, a loud metallic bang hit the outer door. The drones had found them. Ethan grabbed his rifle and looked at Tyrion. "Kid, if we're gonna survive, you better tell me who's chasing you." Tyrion's eyes glowed faintly. "The Syndicate," he whispered. "They want me. And my mother's power." The sound of metal claws tearing through the wall filled the air. Ethan's heart raced. He had no idea what kind of danger he had brought into his life. But one thing was certain. This night, he had found something not from Earth, and it was only the beginning. The metal door shook again, echoing through the workshop. Ethan grabbed his old plasma rifle, his hands trembling. The boy, Tyrion, sat weakly on the table, the strange collar around his neck still blinking red. Outside, shadows moved. Machines, not human. Through the small window, Ethan saw glowing red eyes scanning through the smoke. They were searching for the boy. Ethan whispered, "We can't stay here." He pulled Tyrion close, opening a trapdoor under the workbench. It led to an old storm shelter filled with wires, batteries, and junk from another age. "Go," Ethan said, helping him down. The boy hesitated. "They can track me. The collar. It sends a signal." Ethan cursed under his breath. Then he noticed something strange. The collar's lights pulsed like a heartbeat, faster when the drones came closer, slower when they moved away. It wasn't just tracking him, it was connected to something bigger. He pulled a wire from his tool belt and connected it to the collar's edge. Sparks flashed, the lights flickered, and suddenly, the air above Tyrion shimmered. A blue hologram formed again, but this time it wasn't just an image. It was a message file opening itself. Ethan and Tyrion stared as a woman's face appeared. Tyrion's mother. Her voice was calm but tired, filled with sadness and courage. "If you are hearing this, it means I failed to protect my son," she said. "My name is Lyra Vera. I was captured by the Galactic Syndicate." Her words cut through the silence like a blade. Ethan frowned. "Galactic Syndicate? What the hell is that?" he muttered. The hologram continued. "They use slaves to build weapons powered by life energy," she said. "They want my knowledge to create the heart core, an engine that can destroy planets or heal them." She looked straight into the hologram, her eyes full of pain. "They will come for Tyrion next, because his energy is pure." The image flickered again, showing a set of star coordinates. "Find me on Zorath, the mining world, Sector 9. And whoever you are, please protect him." Then the light vanished, and the workshop went dark again. Ethan stood frozen, his mind racing. Zorath, Sector 9, Galactic Syndicate. These were not words meant for Earth. He looked at Tyrion, who sat quietly, tears in his glowing eyes. "I told you," the boy whispered. "They took her. They'll take everyone if they get what they want." Before Ethan could answer, a red beam cut through the wall. The drones had found them. Metal claws smashed through the door, scanning lights sweeping the room. Ethan grabbed Tyrion's hand and ran toward the back tunnel. "Come on, kid," he shouted. The drones fired bolts of energy, missing by inches as the two sprinted into the dark. They crawled through a tunnel filled with water pipes and dust. Behind them, the workshop exploded, flames lighting the night sky. Ethan coughed from the smoke but kept moving. Tyrion followed, his small body trembling but determined. After minutes that felt like hours, they reached the old train line, buried under the scrapyard's edge. Ethan finally stopped to breathe. The boy sat beside him, staring at the stars through a hole in the ceiling. "They'll keep coming," Tyrion said softly. "They never stop." Ethan looked at him and sighed. "Then we'll have to run smarter." He opened his wrist scanner and replayed the hologram's coordinates. A map appeared. Distant stars, one marked Zorath, blinking in the far corner of the galaxy. It felt impossible, unreachable, yet Ethan couldn't walk away. He looked at the boy. "If your mom's really there, we'll find her." Tyrion turned to him, his silver eyes glowing faintly. "Why would you help me? You don't even know us." Ethan paused for a moment, then said quietly, "Because someone has to." He remembered the faces of people he couldn't save during Earth's last wars. Maybe this time, helping this strange child was his way to make things right. The wind howled through the tunnels, carrying the sound of engines above. Drones were still searching. Ethan stood, pulling the boy to his feet. "We'll go underground," he said. "There's an old resistance hideout not far from here. They might help." Tyrion nodded, his small hand gripping Ethan's arm. For the first time since he found him, the boy's voice was steady. "Thank you, Ethan," he said softly. "You won't regret this." Ethan smiled faintly. "Kid, I already do," he replied, half joking, half serious. But deep inside, he knew this was bigger than just one rescue. Somewhere out there, in the stars, something powerful was waiting. And Ethan Cole, a simple human mechanic, had just become part of a war that would decide the fate of worlds. The collar in Tyrion's hand flickered once more, its light fading, but its message had already changed everything. The night wind howled across the broken lands, carrying dust and metal ash through the air. Ethan and Tyrion moved through the shadows, climbing over ruined roads and twisted steel. The old world was dead, full of skeleton towers and collapsed highways, a ghost of what Earth used to be. Far behind them, the sky still burned red where the drones had destroyed Ethan's workshop. They had nowhere left to go. Ethan kept his old rifle tight in his hands, scanning the horizon. Tyrion followed close, breathing hard, the collar on his neck still faintly glowing, ever. A few minutes, Ethan's tracker beeped. More drones, spreading out, searching. "They don't give up easy," Ethan muttered. "They never do," Tyrion whispered back, his voice tired but full of fear. The wastelands were silent except for the low hum of wind and faraway engines. Rusting cars sat half buried in the sand, and in the distance, lightning flashed across dark storm clouds. Ethan stopped near an old gas station, its roof half fallen. "Rest for a bit," he said, looking at the boy. "You're burning up." Tyrion sat on the ground, his hands shaking. "The collar. It hurts when they get close." Ethan crouched beside him, inspecting the blinking red light again. He had no tools now, nothing to safely remove it, but he had one idea. To block its signal, he tore open the side of a broken drone he had shot earlier, pulling wires and a small chip from its core. He connected it to his wrist scanner, Sparks flew, but he kept going. Tyrion watched with wide eyes. "What are you doing?" "Building a jammer," Ethan said. "If this works, it'll stop them from tracking you, at least for a while." When he attached the chip to the collar, the blinking slowed, then stopped. The boy gasped as a faint blue light pulsed instead, calm and steady. "It worked," Tyrion whispered, almost in disbelief. Ethan smiled. "Let's hope it stays that way." Just then, the ground began to shake. Ethan looked up. Far away, a giant machine walker appeared on the horizon. Its legs moved like cranes, crushing the old road beneath, its sensors glowing red. "Hunter unit," Tyrion said quietly. "They send those when they lose the smaller ones." Ethan cursed under his breath. So much for staying quiet. He grabbed the boy's hand. "Come on, kid. We move now." They ran through the wasteland, the night alive with light and thunder. The hunter fired energy blasts, turning sand into glass where they had just stood. Ethan dove behind a rusted bus, pulling Tyrion down with him. "Stay low," he said, aiming his rifle. The hunter's drone escort swept the area, shining blinding red lights. Ethan fired, hitting one, then another, sparks bursting in the dark. But for everyone he destroyed, more came. Tyrion's eyes began to glow. He raised his hands, whispering something in a strange alien language. The air around them shimmered, and a sudden wave of blue energy exploded outward. The drones froze midair, systems failing, and crashed to the ground one by one. Ethan looked at him in shock. "What the hell was that?" The boy breathed heavily. "My mother taught me. It's part of my energy, but I can't hold it for long." He fell to his knees, weak and trembling. Ethan grabbed him, pulling him close. "Save your strength, kid. You're not dying on me." They kept moving, deeper into the wastelands, until they found an old highway tunnel leading underground. Ethan sealed the entrance with a fallen car, their footsteps echoing in the dark. Inside, the tunnel was quiet, only the soft hum of wind flowing through broken vents. Tyrion leaned against the wall, his face pale. Ethan handed him a flask of water. "Drink this." The boy nodded slowly. "Thank you." For a moment, the silence felt peaceful. Then Ethan spoke. "Tell me more about your mother." Tyrion looked down, his small hands trembling. "She's a scientist," he said softly. "She can create energy hearts, small cores that can heal planets, make life grow again." He looked up, tears in his glowing eyes. "But the Syndicate, they use her gift to make weapons instead." Ethan listened quietly, every word sinking deep. "So they're not just slavers," he said. "They're trying to control life itself." Tyrion nodded. "Yes, and if they get what they want, no world will be safe." Outside, thunder rolled across the desert, the hunter's searchlights moving past the tunnel entrance. Ethan looked toward the light and whispered, "Then we'll stop them. Somehow." The boy smiled faintly, hope flickering in his eyes for the first time. "Maybe the stars sent me to you for a reason," he said. Ethan didn't reply, but deep inside, he felt it too. Fate had brought this child to him. And now their journey had only just begun. The tunnel stretched for miles beneath the ruined city, cold and dark, like the bones of a forgotten world. Ethan's flashlight flickered as he led Tyrion through the dust and silence. Every sound echoed, the drip of water, the crunch of their steps, the soft hum of the boy's collar. They had been walking for hours, hiding from the drones above, moving toward a place Ethan hoped still existed. When he was a soldier years ago, he heard rumors of a secret human group that never gave up the fight. They called themselves the Resistance. People who refused to accept that Earth had fallen. If they were still alive, they were hiding deep underground, and Ethan prayed they would listen before throwing him out or shooting him on sight. They finally reached a heavy door made of rusted steel, covered with faded warning signs. Ethan knocked 3 times, then waited. Nothing happened. He knocked again, louder. Finally, a voice came through the metal, harsh, cold, and suspicious. "Who's there?" Ethan stepped closer. "Name's Ethan Cole, former engineer from Sector 12. I need help." Silence. Then the voice replied, "No outsiders allowed. Go back before we make you disappear." Ethan clenched his jaw. "I've got a kid with me. Not human. He needs help, and the Syndicate is after him." The silence grew longer this time. Then locks turned, gears clicked, and the door slowly opened, groaning like a tired beast. A woman stood there holding a plasma pistol, her eyes sharp as glass. She looked about 35, with a scar across her cheek and a badge on her chest that read, Mara. Behind her were dim lights, metal walls, and people working on old machines. "Not human," she repeated, staring. At Tyrion, "What is he?" Tyrion stepped forward shyly, his silver eyes glowing softly in the dark. "I'm Tyrion," he said. "I come from another world. My mother was taken." The woman lowered her gun slowly, surprise flickering across her face. "You're serious," she said to Ethan. "You actually brought an alien here." Ethan nodded. "He's just a kid. And those syndicate freaks nearly killed us both." Mara sighed and waved them inside. "Fine. Come in before the drones sniff you out." Inside the base, the air smelled of oil and dust. People worked on weapons, old ships, and strange power cores. Some looked up curiously at Tyrion. Others stepped back in fear. "Don't mind them," Mara said. "They've never seen anything like you before." Tyrion nodded silently, holding Ethan's sleeve tightly. Mara led them to a small command room, where a large holographic map of the galaxy glowed on the wall. "You said the Syndicate is hunting him," she said, crossing her arms. "Why?" Ethan told her everything: the crash, the collar, the hologram of Tyrion's mother, the name Zorath. When he finished, the room was quiet. Mara rubbed her forehead. "Zorath. I've heard that name before." She turned to a man beside her. "Ren, pull up the Syndicate's mining routes." A new map appeared, filled with red dots marking enslaved planets. "There," Ren said, pointing. "Zorath. Deep in the outer rim, no one goes there and comes back." Mara looked back at Ethan. "You're insane if you think you can reach it." Ethan leaned forward, his eyes hard. "I'm not leaving that kid's mother in chains." Mara stared at him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "You've got fire, Cole." "Maybe too much." She looked at Tyrion. "And you? What can you do?" Tyrion hesitated. "I can use energy. My kind can heal or destroy, depending on the heart." Mara raised an eyebrow. "Prove it." Ethan started to protest, but Tyrion stepped forward, placing his hand on a broken power core. Blue light spread from his fingers, glowing brighter and brighter until the machine hummed back to life. Gasps filled the room as the holographic lights stabilized and the generators came online for the first time in years. Ren whispered, "That's impossible." Mara stared at Tyrion, speechless for a moment, then said quietly, "Maybe you are what we've been waiting for." The base shook suddenly, dust falling from the ceiling. A loud alarm blared, red lights flashing. "Drones!" someone shouted. "They've found us!" Mara turned to Ethan. "You led them here?" Ethan shook his head. "No. It must be the caller's residue signal." "Then we fight," Mara said, pulling out her gun. "Everyone, positions!" Ethan grabbed his rifle, standing beside her. Tyrion hid behind a console, but his eyes glowed again, hands trembling with power. The sound of explosions grew louder as Syndicate machines broke through the tunnels. "Get him out," Mara shouted. "If the Syndicate wants that kid, they won't stop until they burn the whole city." Ethan grabbed Tyrion. "We can use the old ship, the Horizon, right?" Mara hesitated, then nodded. "It barely works, but it's your only shot." As the walls cracked and fire filled the air, Ethan and Tyrion ran through the chaos toward the docking bay. The boy looked back at Mara, shouting, "Thank you!" She smiled faintly through the smoke. "Don't thank me yet, kid. Just make it count." They reached the ship, old, rusted, but alive. Ethan slammed the hatch shut as Mara's voice echoed through the radio. "Fly, Cole, before it's too late." Engines roared, fire chased them, and the Horizon lifted off into the burning night, leaving Earth behind, and flying straight into the stars. The Horizon trembled as it broke through Earth's atmosphere, flames streaking past its old metal wings. Inside the cockpit, alarms screamed, lights flashed red, and Ethan's hands gripped the controls so tight his knuckles turned white. Tyrion sat strapped beside him, his small hands shaking as he watched the burning clouds fall away beneath them. Outside, the sky turned black, then endless, filled with stars, stretching into forever. For the first time, Ethan had left Earth behind. The engines coughed and rattled, struggling against the cold vacuum of space. "Hold together, girl," Ethan muttered to the ship. "Just hold together." The Horizon wasn't built for this kind of flight. It was a relic of the old wars, patched up with scrap and luck. Still, it climbed higher until the blue of Earth faded completely, replaced by the quiet glow of the cosmos. Tyrion stared through the window, eyes wide. "It's beautiful," he whispered, his voice full of wonder and sadness. Ethan looked at him and nodded. "Yeah, it is." For a while, silence filled the ship. The boy's breathing slowed, but his eyes stayed on the stars. Ethan tried not to think about what they had left behind. Mara's sacrifice, the people still hiding underground, the burning ruins of his workshop. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw them. He had promised to protect this kid, and now there was no turning back. Tyrion finally spoke again. "Where are we going?" Ethan pointed at a blinking light on the holomap. "Zorath, your mother's coordinates." The boy frowned. "It's far, very far." "I know," Ethan said. We'll have to go through the Void Rift. It's the only route the Syndicate won't expect. Tyrion's eyes widened. The Void? That place destroys ships. Ethan smiled faintly. Yeah, well, we don't exactly have better options. Hours passed as the horizon drifted through the black sea of space, stars shim. Mirrored like frozen sparks, and sometimes strange shadows moved far in the distance. Ethan sat quietly, watching the radar. Tyrion sat beside him, holding a small, glowing crystal. The last piece of his home. This was my mother's, he said softly. She said it holds the energy of our world. Ethan studied it, the soft blue light reflecting in his eyes. It's alive, he said in amazement. I can feel the pulse. Tyrion nodded. It listens to the heart. Ethan smiled gently. Then keep it safe. We might need it before this is over. The silence didn't last. A sudden alarm screamed through the cockpit. Beep, beep, beep. Damn it, Ethan cursed. We've got company. Through the window, he saw Syndicate interceptors appearing behind them, dark ships shaped like blades, fast and deadly. They found us, Tyrion said, his voice shaking. Hang on, Ethan shouted, jerking the controls. The horizon rolled hard to the left, dodging the first blast, bright energy cutting through the dark. Another beam grazed the hull, shaking the ship violently. Shields at 20%, the console warned. Of course they are, Ethan growled. Kid, hold on to something. He spun the ship toward a glowing blue storm ahead, the Void Rift. Tyrion gasped. You're flying into that? Trust me, Ethan said. They won't follow. The rift loomed like a swirling storm of energy, lightning twisting through black clouds that weren't really clouds. It pulsed with colors that didn't exist in normal space. Blue, violet, gold, and something darker. As they entered, the ship began to shake violently. Ethan's vision blurred, his ears filled with static, and strange whispers echoed through the cabin. Tyrion screamed as blue lightning crawled across his arms. It's reacting to me, he shouted. Ethan reached for him. Stay with me, kid. The storm grew louder, the walls of the ship glowing from the inside. Tyrion's crystal floated out of his hands, spinning in the air, its light burning brighter. The whispers turned into voices, millions of them calling from somewhere beyond space. Then everything went still. No sound, no light, just silence. Ethan opened his eyes, floating weightless in the cockpit. Outside, space was dark, darker than before. They were through the rift, but something was wrong. Tyrion? Ethan called softly. The boy lay unconscious, glowing faintly blue. Ethan unstrapped himself and shook him gently. Come on, kid, don't you dare die on me now, he said, his voice breaking. Slowly, Tyrion's eyes opened, shimmering silver. I saw her, he whispered weakly. My mother. She called my name. Ethan froze. You saw her? How? In the void, Tyrion said. She showed me light and pain. She said, find the heart. Then he fell asleep again, his breathing soft and calm. Ethan leaned back in the chair, exhausted but alive. He looked out at the endless stars. No syndicate ships, no more danger for now. He whispered to himself, we made it. Somehow. Then he looked at the boy and smiled faintly. Don't worry, kid, he said softly. We'll find her. I promise. The horizon drifted quietly through the Black Sea. Behind them, the rift closed like a fading scar in the universe. Ahead of them, a small red star flickered in the distance. The first light of Zorath, and for the first time, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The horizon drifted out of the rift like a wounded bird, its engines sparking and smoke filling the cabin. Ethan coughed as alarms screamed around him. Easy, easy, he muttered, trying to steady the controls. Outside, the black of space gave way to the red glare of a dying sun, and below them, Zorath waited, a planet covered in dust, storms, and endless fire. Tyrion woke slowly, his small body weak from the energy he had used. He looked out the window and whispered, That's it. That's where they took her. Ethan stared at the planet, half curious, half afraid. Thick smoke curled around massive mini-SI. Towers that rose like claws from the surface. Even from orbit, he could see the ships, the guards, and the glowing lights of machines crawling through the sands. It's worse than I imagined, he said quietly. The horizon shook again as they entered the atmosphere. Flames wrapped around the hull, the ship screaming through the sky like a meteor. Ethan gritted his teeth, forcing the controls steady. We're coming in hot, he said. When they hit the ground, the ship skidded across the sand and slammed into a ridge. Dust exploded around them, metal groaned, but somehow they survived. When the dust cleared, Ethan opened the hatch. The air outside was heavy and hot. He stepped out carefully, his boots sinking into red sand. The sky above was dark orange, filled with thunder and smoke. Far away, he saw giant machines digging into the ground, carrying cages filled with alien slaves. It was a world of chains and fire. Tyrion followed him out, his eyes glowing faintly. "They keep the prisoners deep underground," he said softly. "I can feel her. She's still alive." Ethan nodded. "Then we find her." He opened a metal case and pulled out 2 cloaks made from mining fabric. "Put this on. We blend in, move fast, and keep quiet." Tyrion wrapped himself in the cloak, his silver eyes now hidden under the hood. They began walking toward the mines, blending into the long line of workers dragging broken equipment through the sand. The syndicate guards were everywhere, tall figures in black armor with red visors glowing like fire. They shouted orders, whipped the weak, and scanned every face with their machines. Ethan kept his head down, pushing an old cart filled with scrap. Tyrion walked beside him, pretending to limp. When they reached the gates of the main mine, Ethan felt his heart pound. The entrance was guarded by a massive sentinel robot with a cannon for an arm, but the Ords ignored them. Slaves were invisible here. Inside the mines, the air was thick with dust and pain. Hundreds of aliens worked under the glow of molten light. Chains rattled, engines roared, and screams echoed down the tunnels. Ethan looked around in horror. "This is a nightmare," he whispered. Tyrion closed his eyes. "Her energy is close. Down there." He pointed toward a restricted shaft guarded by heavy doors and electric fields. Ethan studied the security panel beside the door. It was syndicate tech. Advanced, but not impossible. "I can hack this," he said, pulling a small device from his belt. As he worked, Tyrion kept watch, his hands glowing faintly in the dark. "Ethan," he said quietly, "why are you helping me? You could have left me on Earth." Ethan didn't look up, his voice rough. "I lost my family when the wars came," he said. "If I can save yours, maybe that means something." The door clicked open with a soft hiss. They slipped inside, entering a massive underground chamber. It glowed with a strange blue light. The heart of the mines, machines surrounded a central platform where hundreds of energy tubes connected to a single core. And at the center of it all, a woman hung suspended in midair, energy flowing through her body. Her face was pale, her eyes closed, but even from a distance, Tyrion knew her. "Mother," he whispered, tears forming in his eyes. Ethan grabbed his shoulder. "Wait, it's a trap." Before he could finish, a voice echoed through the chamber, deep and cold. "So the child returns," it said. From the shadows, a tall syndicate commander stepped forward, his armor shining with dark light. He looked almost human, but his skin shimmered with steel veins and glowing eyes. Ethan raised his rifle. "Who are you?" The commander smiled. "I am what your kind fears, the collector of power." He turned his gaze toward Tyrion. "And you, little heir of Vaera, have brought me exactly what I need." The floor lit up beneath them, energy traps snapping to life. Ethan tried to fire, but the rifle was ripped from his hands by magnetic force. Tyrion screamed as the collar on his neck reactivated, glowing bright red. Ethan lunged forward trying to pull it off, but it burned his hands. The commander laughed. "You cannot stop destiny, human." The walls began to shift, sealing them inside the chamber. Tyrion's mother opened her eyes weakly, whispering one word: "Run." But it was too late. The energy field exploded, throwing Ethan and Tyrion across the floor. The commander stepped closer, smiling coldly. "The heart of the galaxy belongs to us now," he said, his voice echoing like thunder. Ethan's vision blurred, the world spinning into light and sound. But even as darkness took him, one thought burned in his mind. He would not fail this boy, not now, not ever. Ethan woke to the sound of metal grinding and distant screams. The air was heavy with smoke and the smell of burning circuits. He blinked through the dust, his head throbbing. They were still in the massive underground chamber, but the lights were red now, pulsing like a heartbeat. The syndicate commander stood near the energy core, his armor glowing as he drew power from it. Tyrion lay beside Ethan, unconscious, his collar shining bright crimson. The boy's mother, Lyra, hung weakly in the air, energy crackling around her. She looked half alive, her body feeding the glowing reactor that pulsed with a deep blue light. Ethan crawled toward her, coughing, his hands shaking. "Hang on, I'm getting you out," he whispered. The commander turned, his voice cold and sharp. Human, you don't understand, he said. Her power is the key to creation itself. He stepped closer, his eyes burning with greed. With her energy, the Syndicate will no longer need slaves. We will become gods. Ethan raised his rifle with trembling hands. Not while I'm breathing. The commander smiled. Then you will stop breathing soon. He lifted his hong. And an invisible force slammed Ethan across the room. The human crashed into a wall, pain shooting through his ribs. But still, he pushed himself up, refusing to give in. He looked at Tyrion, who was beginning to stir, his silver eyes faintly glowing again. Lyra's weak voice echoed through the chamber. Ethan, take him, please, she said softly. He's the key. He can save them all. Ethan looked up. What do you mean? She smiled sadly. Inside him is the new heart, the last pure energy left in the galaxy. Her voice broke. If he releases it, the Syndicate's machines will die, but so will I. Before Ethan could reply, the commander roared, Enough talk! He raised his arm, energy swirling around his palm. A massive blast of red power shot across the chamber. Ethan dove to shield Tyrion, the explosion throwing them both back. Sparks flew, metal cracked, and alarms screamed. Ethan, Tyrion whispered weakly. He's too strong. Ethan grabbed his shoulder. Listen to me, kid. Your mother's right. You've got something he can't control. Tyrion shook his head, tears in his glowing eyes. If I do this, she'll die. Ethan's voice broke. If you don't, she dies anyway. And so does everyone else. The boy looked up at his mother, her eyes soft and full of love. Tyrion, she whispered, you were born to give life. Now give it. The boy closed his eyes. The red light around his collar turned blue, then white. The air began to hum as energy built inside him. The Syndicate commander froze, realizing too late what was happening. No, he shouted, charging forward, his blade drawn. Ethan stepped between them, blocking the strike with his rifle. The weapon shattered, but Ethan didn't move. He stared the commander in the eye. You picked the wrong human to mess with, he growled. Behind him, Tyrion's light grew brighter. The floor cracked, the air shimmered, and the machines screamed as the energy spread through the room. Lyra's chains broke, her body surrounded by the same light. She smiled through the tears, whispering, I'm proud of you. My son. Then everything turned white. A blinding wave of energy burst outward. The commander disintegrated into dust, his scream echoing as the machines melted away. The mines collapsed, the reactors exploded, and the chains of every slave across Zorath shattered. The sky above the planet turned blue for the first time in centuries. When the light faded, Ethan opened his eyes slowly. He was lying on the sand outside the ruins, the sun rising over the horizon. Beside him sat Tyrion, holding the glowing crystal that now pulsed softly. Ethan sat up, his body aching. You did it, kid. You really did it. Tyrion smiled weakly. She's gone, but she's free now. Ethan looked at the sky. There were no Syndicate ships, no smoke, no machines, only peace. In the distance, freed aliens walked out of the mines, looking at the sun with disbelief and joy. Some cried, others simply stood in silence, tasting freedom for the first time. Ethan watched them, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Pride. He turned to Tyrion. What now? The boy looked at the crystal in his hands. This is what's left of her, her heart. He looked up at Ethan. I want to rebuild, make something good from all this. Ethan smiled, his voice soft but steady. Then we'll do it together, he said, a human and an alien kid, fixing the galaxy one world at a time. Tyrion laughed quietly. Do you really think that's possible? Ethan looked at the sunrise and grinned. Kid, after everything we've seen, anything's possible. As the wind carried the golden dust across the red sands, the two walked toward the light. The horizon waited in the distance, its wings glinting under the new sun. Behind them, Zorath began to heal, the first flowers blooming from the ashes, and far beyond, in the silent stars, a new legend was born. The story of a human who stood against the galaxy and a boy who carried the hate. Erd of life itself,